Welcome to brunch, ladies and gentlemen. Top off that mimosa, grab another pancake. What else do you get at brunch? Maybe get another.
You can get some sausage.
Get some sausage. Get some sausage.
Bloody Marys.
Whatever you need. Whatever you need. It's Friday and it's brunch, and Friday at brunch time, 11 a.m. Central. We will be joining. That's Kaleb Henry. I am Jack Mitchell.
Hello.
Kaleb of HuskerMax, me of KLIN Radio and the I-80 Club, and I'm Jack, and we are going to be talking Nebrasketball weekly on Fridays for the pendency of this season. It's a new show. Today is our debut. It's something that we've been wanting to do for quite a while. I've been wanting to have a chance to talk more just Nebrasketball for a longer period of time than is really afforded during our regular I-80 Club show, during my radio show, during any of those things. And so we've invented this, the Nebrasketball Brunch Show, and we will be able to delve in. I think what'll probably be kind of a unique, good time of the week, with usually a game that is coming up either in the next day or two right after it happens. This week it'll be on Monday. And then, of course, some games perhaps that happened the night before or a few nights before. So the week that was, the week that is coming, and we will delve into it. One real quick, couple of quick things I want to mention here before we get started. If you're watching this now on YouTube, you are probably watching in one of two places, either the I-80 Club YouTube page or the HuskerMax YouTube page. We would encourage you to subscribe to both. We would encourage you to set reminders when we go live for both of these two, because not only will this show come on every Friday, but Kaleb, myself, and Jacob Bigelow will be going live after most Nebraska basketball games for After Nebrasketball, which is our postgame show. And we'll start that on Monday. About 15 minutes after the show, Kaleb and Jacob will be live at Pinnacle Bank Arena for that first one. I'll be back in my home studio where you see me right here, and we are going to have immediate reaction after every Nebraska basketball game. Kaleb and Bigelow for home games will be giving you the perspective from Pinnacle Bank Arena. Bigelow will be have a chance to talk to Fred Hoiberg, select players after the game as well. And so it's going to be a fully immersive post-game experience that we just don't think there's enough of right now. So if you're on your way home from the games, if you're watching at home, listen to the end of the coverage, listen to Kent and Jake interview Fred Hoiberg, and then once they're done there, join us, because that's about when we will go on. Kaleb, anything else on kind of the HuskerMax end that I should mention besides what I had there?
Nope. If anyone ever forgets where any of these links are, we always have them at HuskerMax.com. And then, of course, a lot of stuff there links to the Nebraska on SI site, where we posted in kind of story form, but it's got all of the links there, whether it's the YouTube pages, whether it's the subscribing to the I-80 Patreon and the Discord and all of the other great stuff that you guys are doing. Only other thing I'd mention is that because I listened to it earlier in this week, something you guys did with I-80 Club, the +1 with Kent Pavelka, he did call you like the #1 Nebrasketball fan, holding down in Lincoln.
Did he really? I didn't even know he said that.
Yes, he did.
Or I didn't remember it, at least. I was probably in my head about the next question I was going to ask. Well, that's good. I appreciate that title coming from Kent. That was awesome. Yeah, and if you didn't watch the Kent Pavelka one, it's up there. I'm going to be actually working from a lot of what he said, Kaleb, because he's had a chance to watch more of these players than anyone who's not like a coach on the team, right? Or on the team, since he's been at a bunch of practices. So he kind of went player by player with me, and gave me some of the guidance on the new guys that I'm going to be relying on a lot as we talk today. So that's what we've got all coming up here on the I-80 Club on HuskerMax. The other thing is we will be reading some comments during the show. Those are coming from our I-80 Club members. And if you want to be one of those, you go to patreon.com/I-80 Club, join the community tier that come from our Discord, which is a very active, and Kaleb knows this too, he's a part of it. It's a very active, fun community. It kind of provides our live studio audience for all the shows that we do, but we also talk about the games. We talk about a whole lot of other stuff, from movies to books to home projects to other sports to my fliff bets to everything else that's possible. So we hope you guys will think about joining that, because we have a lot of fun, get a chance to get connected with a bunch of people. It's a true community, and Josh and I have made it a point to make it something that's non-toxic and something that's kind of refreshing compared to what we see on social media. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Unless you got anything else of that type of stuff.
That's all the disclaimers.
Let's get to Nebrasketball. Starting on Monday, we've got a preseason game in the books. We have the kind of intra-squad thing in the books. We've got a secret scrimmage in the book.
Secret.
So, we've got that in the books. But I want to open up something that I want to start the show with off every time that we get going here. And it is going to be something we'll keep track of throughout the year. And I will admit I am borrowing this from a podcast that I enjoy that has to do with the Kansas City Royals, where the hosts at the beginning gave a rating of their confidence in the Royals being a postseason team. Every single podcast, and it was kind of interesting every week to come on and hear, oh, are we getting close to being more and more confident, and went up and down throughout the year. And so the first one, obviously, you're kind of going in blind on this thing. Frankly, I'm going in blind. I feel like with a lot that we're going to talk about today. So it might be a little bit about vibes today. I'm looking forward to being able to see. Kaleb, I want to start. So it'll be on a scale out of 10 every week. And the question is simply, where would you put out of 10 your confidence in Nebraska making a second straight appearance in the NCAA tournament? That will be the goal for the purposes of this scale.
Yeah.
What will it be on a scale of 1 to 10? So I will start. I've got my number in my head. I'm not going to change it. Why don't you tell me yours first and maybe explain why it is what it is?
Give me a 9. I'm at a 9 to start this season.
What?
You wait until we get to
what are you doing with our show already?
Give me a 9, and you wait until we get to our Big Ten tiers and the way I've tiered some of these out. I think Nebraska right now.
Okay, this is going to be a wild show. I can tell you that right now.
Solidly in the NCAA tournament. I know bracketology, like they're not even on there. Give me Nebraska solidly in. This is a better team than they were a year ago. You have a true point guard. You've got shooting galore everywhere. You have size for what feels like the first time in forever. True size. A trio of 6'10 plus transfers came in. You have a 6'5 point guard, 6'7 you've got with your shooting guard who needs to go off. You've got a bunch of shooting coming off the bench. This team has 11 guys that can play at this level 25 minutes a night. They're going to need to cut that down to 8, but they have dudes who can play at this level. I like the additions. I like the guys that are coming back. Give me a 9 to open the season.
Dang! That is, wow. I am going to feel like a real a-hole when I get my number.
What is it, like a 4?
I was going to go 3.5.
Oh,
to start the season.
Different ends here, man.
Wow. Okay. This is going to be fascinating to track throughout the year. I am starting at a 3.5. And again, I will emphasize what I said at the beginning. I know who is on the team. I've heard a bit about them. I've seen a very little of them. I've seen some of them play a bit at other places. I've been able to look at stats, but I mean, I feel like I'm still really going in blind right now without an actual game to have any sense, especially a game against a good opponent, to have any sense of how it will all work. I think in theory, Kaleb, like Kent even said this to me when he was talking to me. He said he thinks this is a better roster than last year. I mean, to your point, he thinks it's a better roster than last year. I think there's a little of me that's just got sort of that fatalist in me that can hardly believe that this is going to happen 2 times in a row. I guess when you really break it down by player to player, looking this year to last year, and I think we'll do that a little bit, maybe I should be a little bit more bullish, but I think the schedule factors in as well. The new Big Ten schedule factors in. I think that might make it a little bit more difficult as well. I think, I think losing Rank Mass definitely factors in to the whole thing and the kind of presence that he gave offensively for the team as well. I still have question marks in terms of sort of the shifting role of of some of the players and Bryce in particular and what that's going to look like for him. He is going to be a linchpin to so much about this season. But 35% isn't bad. 3.5
It's not
out of
90.
10. I'm not even halfway there, but 90 is something. Like, do you truly feel, are you being serious? Like, you truly are that confident this team's a tournament team?
If you are,
I don't know that I will get to 9 until like until there are 2 minutes left at the end of the Big Ten championship game. I don't know that I will ever get to where you are on November 1st.
Because you have to lay it out that this is an expanded league with good teams who came in. If you are top half in this league, you are going to make the NCAA tournament. If that's what it is. So
do we believe that? Do we believe that? Kent said the same thing to me. Do we believe that? And I know Lenardi has 10, has half in. Is that going to be the rule of thumb that we're going by? Top half gets in.
I think depending on how some of the non-conference stuff goes, the Big Ten could get 11. Depending on how the non-conference stuff goes.
So let's say 10 for the sake of argument. Top.
Yeah, you say 10. Well, that's 10 out of 18 then. And then it's where's the confidence? Can Nebraska, with last year's roster, where we even with everything Casey did and Rink did, you got to the end of the year, Rink wasn't the same guy he was against Ohio State.
For sure.
And Casey, it depended on the night. On if things hit, he was beautiful. If things didn't hit, he didn't play a whole lot. What else did everybody else bring to the table, and how did those things go? And you ended up third in the league. Can Nebraska, with 4 new teams, not every one of them great, 4 new teams in an 18-team league, can they be top 10? I say yes. They can be top 10 in this league, and they are definitely in the NCAA tournament. I'm a 9 to open the year.
So does that mean to you that sort of that line where they have to get into the tournament? Top half. So if we're saying top half of the league, I assume that means do you think that probably means to be top half of the league, you've got to be just over 500 in the league, most likely?
I think probably. You can.
Is that a fair rule of thumb?
You got to get around 500, yeah. Which is where I have them. You got to get around 500. I think you might see someone go undefeated in the non-conference or drop 1 in the non-conference and go 9-11 in the Big Ten, and then win a couple games in the Big Ten tournament, and they get in. So I think it's possible to be sub 500 in the league the way things stand and still make the NCAA tournament and still be top 10 at sub 500. Because there's going to be a lot of teams that have 9, 10, 11 wins at the end of this season in the Big Ten conference.
So you've got 11 non-conference games. Let's just talk about this a little bit, of what the target is going to be. Did I count that right? Texas Rio Grande Valley, Bethune-Cookman, Fairleigh Dickinson, St. Mary's in Sioux Falls, Creighton, South Dakota, North Florida. Then you got a couple of conference games. Then Missouri, and then Murray State in Honolulu. Yes, and then 2 more games in Honolulu. So that's 10. And then Southern is number 11. So that's 11 home games with I assume the only ones that are going to be anywhere close to a real resume booster in that group. Things can change, maybe it depends a little bit about who you face in Hawaii, but it's probably just Creighton and St. Mary's, right?
It's Creighton, St. Mary's, and winning in Hawaii.
And winning the whole thing.
Winning, going 3-0. The
whole dang thing.
Yeah, so that's where those are the resume boosters, is a neutral site game, a road game at your in-state rival, and then going 3-0 in Hawaii. Those are the non-conference opportunities.
The Hawaii field is Charleston, Charlotte, Hawaii, Loyola Chicago, Murray State, Nebraska. I'm looking at their website, and they just have logos. One, I don't know what the logo is. It looks like an angry bear. Who's that? There's an angry bear team and Oregon State, who Nebraska killed last year. So they're Nebraska plus Angry Bear plus those other 6 teams who are in it. I don't know. None of those are looking to me like they're probably going to be real.
Oakland.
But, is that who the Angry Bears are?
Yeah.
The Oakland Angry Bears?
Yes.
Okay. So they may see the Angry Bears on Christmas Day. We'll see. So none of those. You got to win it. So can you do? Let me ask you this question. Okay, just early questions. We'll be delving into this a lot. Let's say you don't get St. Mary's or Creighton, just for the sake of argument. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you want to give them all three in Hawaii. And so what? 9-2
That'd
in
be 9-2,
non-con.
yeah.
So then if you're 10-10 in the conference, 19 wins, you probably have work to do in the NCAA tournament. I know this is putting the cart so far above the horse, and so many other things depend on this. I like to sort of have something to shoot for, though, as I'm making this assessment. Like, that's the line, right? Probably one of you probably go 10-10 and you get one of those, and you get none of those games. You're gonna be on the bubble, right? Change that out, get one of those two games, or do a little better in the conference. You're probably on the safe side, like most likely for the purposes of this discussion.
Well, and it depends a little bit on like what does that 10-10 or 11-9 look like in the Big Ten? Like, did you beat Illinois at home?
That's true. Last year's good. Yeah, last year. Yeah,
like you've got a stretch, and I know like we can talk about what some of the bigger games are, but like there is a stretch in January at you host UCLA, then at Iowa, at Purdue. Like, can you get over that stretch? Do you go 0-3? You don't feel great about feeling like you took something, but if you come out of that 2-1 and you drop something later on the road, because and I know two of those are on the road, but can you steal one of them? But can you take care of business at home, steal a couple on the road? That's the formula in the Big Ten to being in the top half.
Right.
And for even the teams that win the league, it's defend home court. Can you go 500 on the road? Like that's the formula to being in contention for winning the Big Ten. So there are opportunities within the league to boost your resume, because not all 10-10s are weighted the same. It depends on who you got.
Of course. And I'm just trying to do it, sort of roughly here to kind of put where that line is as we're evaluating early in the year what you probably need to be. I think it's probably a winning record in the conference, and then I think it's probably getting at least one of those two versus St. Mary's and Creighton, right? And a winning record.
Yeah.
I think you feel pretty good if you do those two things. Winning record in the conference plus one of those two games. However, that winning record in the conference.
Well, I can just tell you right now what I have for a record.
Okay.
Like, because I have Nebraska going 9-2 in the non-con.
With losing both St. Mary's and Creighton,
or championship in Hawaii. They get
okay. You're not picking it specifically.
I'm saying they get one of those three.
Okay.
So they go 9-2, and I say Nebraska goes 11-9 in the Big Ten. That's 20-11. Do you feel good about that, knowing that you only got one out of the three for Hawaii, St. Mary's, Creighton?
Yeah, that if you only get one, yes. If you get one or none of those two, even if you go winning record, you wonder if you're going to be having the resume discussion, or if the Big Ten's just so strong, if that 20-game schedule is just so strong, it really is going to plaster over a lack of multiple high-level games in the
I think it will. I think it really will.
Really think so. I'm trying to just get a sense here, too, of the Big Ten this year, and who's kind of in what tier, and we can talk about that a little bit more too. But like, I've got Evan Miyakawa. I just picked his out, but you pick Ken Palm or whatever rating you want. He's got Purdue tops at 11 overall. By the way, he's got nobody in the top 10 from the Big Ten, interestingly enough. Purdue at 11, Indiana at 18, UCLA at 21, Michigan at 26, Illinois 27, Iowa 29, Michigan State 30, Oregon 31, Ohio State 35, Maryland 38, USC 46, and then Nebraska 51. Finishes out Wisconsin, Northwestern, Penn State, Rutgers, Minnesota, Washington. That's one of the weird things about the Big Ten this year is, like, I feel like there is a huge squishy middle in that conference.
There is.
And I'm not sure where it starts and ends exactly, but you've got a real bunch up, I think, between like Michigan and Northwestern almost. In that, which is number 4 and number 15 on those rankings.
Right. Yeah. And that's about the way. So I know you were talking about a lot of today and like your your confidence rating in making the NCAA tournament. Some of it's just vibes right now.
Yeah, for sure.
It's okay. What have you seen from the way, whether it's this rating or that rating, Ken Palm or ESPN or Bracketology, whatever it is, a little bit of its vibes. So I put the Big Ten teams into 4 tiers to open this season.
Okay, I want to hear your tiers.
I have the top tier. You're competing for a Big Ten title.
Purdue.
Because if you're competing for a Big Ten title, you're in the NCAA tournament. You're likely a team saying we're at least making the Elite Eight. Like that.
Okay.
That's what those teams are.
How many teams in this first
3
tier? Purdue, Indiana.
Purdue, yes.
Not Indiana.
Indiana's in my next tier.
Okay.
I have Illinois and UCLA.
Purdue, Illinois, UCLA. Okay.
I really like Illinois. This year. As a matter of fact, I would make Illinois my favorite to win the Big Ten this year.
Okay.
So that's Illinois,
over Purdue.
Yeah, Illinois, Purdue, UCLA. The next tier, 6 teams, I say solidly in the NCAA tournament right now.
Okay.
Indiana, Michigan, Michigan State, Oregon, Iowa, Nebraska.
Okay. Interesting.
The third tier, competing to make the NCAA tournament. So they're not out of it, but it's not surprising if they get there. Rutgers, Maryland, Ohio State, Wisconsin. And then the last tier, they're fighting to, because not every team makes the Big Ten tournament.
Oh, that's right.
They're fighting.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, they're fighting to make the Big Ten tournament. USC, Washington, Northwestern, Penn State, Minnesota.
Okay. I have no idea. I mean, I'm just going to be completely on. Yeah, I don't even know that I could do that other than, I mean, there's a few things, but God, these rosters turn over so much here at this point. And it's interesting. Like you don't have Rutgers real high. Evan Miyakawa doesn't have them real high yet. They've got the infusion of these 2 great, talented players in this year. I don't know what that means exactly. Right? There's all kinds of, there's just replete with questions. And if one thing, I think conference rankings at the beginning of a basketball season are sometimes the most wrongest preseason rankings that we ever see. Not critiquing yours necessarily,
right?
But just having looked at the beginning and the end of those year over year. So it will be interesting. But
if you just go by like just the tiers, like just where the tiers are, if you're in that second tier, let's just call it a ranking. You are between 4th and 9th. Like that feel like there's a lot of difference in how good you feel, whether you're 4th or 9th.
100%, but that's pretty much a fully safe tier, right?
Yes.
For the tournament.
Right.
And that's how we define it. And that's where Nebraska wants to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's in theory where you would like to be in a successful season. Well, okay. So there's kind of our outlook in terms of what is coming. Mine is still just a lack of complete confidence that a whole bunch of new pieces are going to gel, or I don't know how they're going to gel exactly. And I still have a lot of questions about the difficulty of the schedule, the non-con schedule for resume purposes, and the difficulty of the Big Ten schedule for the purposes of winning 10 or more games. So we will obviously see on all that. Let's get a little bit into the team, Kaleb, and into some of the other things. You touched on this on the very outset, but I want to delve into it more. I said in my podcast with Kent, and you intimated this, I think, in your rating that you gave Nebraska a 9 in your confidence rating compared to my 3.5. But Kent said he thinks this is a better roster than last year. I don't think that's I think I agree, but let's dig into it just a little bit on that. Let's first, before I let you just kind of go on that, because I do want you to. Let's talk about what's lost, just so we can totally make this clear, because honestly, some of it you might even forget, right? So the parts that are not there that I would say were contributors last year on this team: CJ Wilcher, obviously, Keisei Tominaga, obviously, Rank Mast, Josiah Alec, and then in terms of others that were, Jamarcus Lawrence, regular contributor. That's probably it.
That's really where it is.
Boogie Coleman, remember him? I forgot Boogie Coleman.
It was interesting anytime he got out there.
I totally forgot about him. I kept thinking he was going to be a big – 1 year ago right now, I was a big Boogie Coleman guy, by the way. Big Boogie Coleman guy. Just to tell you how much to trust my early season takes on players. So when I gave you 5 players there, Alec, Mast, Wilcher, Jamarcus Lawrence, right, and Tominaga, obviously.
Right.
Those are your 5. Those are your 5 big losses. Those are the 5 parts that you're trying to replace.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you bring back in terms of contributors the big 2 in Bryce and Juwan Gary.
Yep.
You still have as contributors last year, Sam Hoiberg, obviously still a part of it. And then other than that, that's really it. That's it in terms of returning contributors. Those 3.
And he wasn't on the floor at all, but obviously he was around in practice. So you have a halfway returner in Aaron Eulis, but it'll be his first time being out there.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Obviously. So
he's a little bit. You go back to. Oh, I cannot believe I'm blanking on the name, but he went to the Raptors. And
Delano Banton.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a Delano Banton situation of he sat a year. He was part of the program. Can he take the step now that he's on the floor?
Yeah. Yeah. So I gave you 5 that are going, 3 that are staying.
Yeah.
So the 5 that are going, here's who is replacing them. Okay. Eulis is kind of the asterisk one, right? As you mentioned there. Beyond that, okay. Connor Esesian. I'm just going to read the names. Connor Esesian, Berke Bjunktengel, Gavin Griffiths, Andrew Morgan, Raleigh Worcester, Braxton Mia. And there's also, I don't know how much, like Nick Janowski you could include in that. Brendan Frager you could include in that as well. I'm not sure how much those guys are going to play. So really, I mean, if you want to boil it down to the main group, it's probably Connor Esesian, Aaron Eulis, Bjunktengel, Gavin Griffiths 4, Andrew Morgan 5, Raleigh Worcester 6, Braxton Mia 7.
Yeah,
is what I think. So it's 7 guys for 5, but all 7 of those aren't necessarily going to be. In fact, you wonder this rotation when you add them in. There's going to be some guys in that group of 7 that aren't going to get a lot of minutes. I think.
Yeah,
and that's going to narrow as it goes on.
It is, and that's going to be a conversation that Hoiberg has to have on what is your role and what does that mean. And there was a really good clip that I saw within a Duke team meeting, and they were talking about what is your role, because knowing what your role is, that's not a limitation of what your abilities are. Mm-hmm. Your role is what helps the team win right now, give the team the best chance to win. And I know those are tough conversations to have with people who are very talented. Mm-hmm. And these are college athletes. They're very talented. Somewhere along the way, they were the number 1 option on their team. They were the guy. So it's tough when you get into a situation and you're 10, 11 deep, and your best rotation is about 8 guys most of the time, and then those other guys might get 5 minutes if there's foul trouble, and they got to be ready to go to play those roles. But you're right, it is going to be interesting, especially early on. And right now, like Sam Hoiberg has been fighting that ankle, and Andrew Morgan was kind of concussion protocol. So you're already figuring out what does it look like when you do get some of the injuries. Now, early on, this feels like a fine time to figure that out. It's tougher to figure that out in January and February on where those like big rotation issues come from.
Right. And just look how much, I mean, we just joked about Boogie Coleman, right? A little bit, but every year, man, that rotation has developed. And this is probably true of every basketball team, but we focus on Nebraska so much. But man, the way you think the rotation is going to go in November and December, even without injuries, completely changes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just remember Sam Hoiberg a couple of years ago, right? You think you're never going to see him play. He becomes, and that was because of injuries in part, but he becomes kind of a regular, right? A couple of years ago, Jamarcus Lawrence coming in again because of injury, but he became a regular,
But like that situation there, because of what happened 2 years ago, and you were like, man, that really derailed what felt like an NCAA tournament season 2 years ago. How much better was the team last year because of those minutes, because of those opportunities, because you saw Casey have that February, because Sam got out there and you went, oh, that's a pretty good defender at this level, a guy that can go out and do some of the dirty work. And so the team benefited last year because of that. And because you still have Juwan Gary around, and you still had those minutes that Sam Hoiberg has been able to play. I think that sets up really well for them being key contributing returners that you have going into this season with a lot of other pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. What do you think? What's the biggest? I think I know the answer to this, but let's go through, Kaleb, in your opinion, what the hardest things to replace from those five main losses from last year, and how the new roster addresses what those losses are. And it's hard. For me, it's hard not to start with Casey.
Yeah.
And real quick, before you delve into like the actual basketball of it, I have an emotional hill to still get over missing Casey Tominaga. And I'm really curious how I'm going to feel 2 or 3 months down the road. If I'm going to say, God, I was so stupid in November, where I was still like, I'm still mourning the loss of Casey Tominaga a little bit. I really I am afraid. I have a legit fear I'm going to go into Pinnacle Bank Arena and I'm going to be like, this is fun, but it's not as fun as last year was, because remember, Casey Tominaga was there and you never quite freaking knew what was going to happen because he was there.
Yeah.
Now I've gotten attached. I'll tell you this, to argue against myself. I got like really attached to, the Isaiah Roby, James Palmer group, that sort of thing. And when they changed over, I was like, I'm never going to love a team as much as I love this team, right? And this group of guys. And I'm going to feel empty after they start winning. And that turned out not to be true, because Casey Tominaga came along, right? Eventually, or someone else came along. But I do legit sort of have some concern that I'm just not going to feel like there's the juice and fun around this team without him. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that sounds stupid, but that's a fear I legit have about this season.
Well, you're right. So what I was going to go with what is those 5 guys are gone, and Casey right at the top because of the emotional attachment that not just you, but the fan base had too.
Yes. That's a thing that matters to you.
And that part, the reason we had an emotional attachment to Casey, and we still do, this isn't going to go away. There's a reason we still try to follow what he's doing as he chases his professional goals. It's because we fell in love with him, and not just what he could do shooting a basketball. It was the stuff he would do after getting a whistle, like all of the emotional things that he would do. That's the part that I think right now is the hole that we don't know until we get into games. How do they fill that? Who is that emotional leader on the floor? And it wasn't just Casey. Think about Josiah Alec last year too.
Yeah.
Like you had this really good 1-2 punch of those guys, and then you would have Rink Mast come in with a little bit too. So you had multiple guys on the team last year that are now not going to be on the floor that really did well to emotionally lift everyone around them.
So we're actually starting with the intangibles, and maybe that's the biggest thing that's lost from that group.
Yeah.
Is that intangible that you're talking about.
Yeah. No, it's going to be different. I don't know that it'll be worse or it'll be better, but it'll be different because you have so many new guys. Does the crowd start to go nuts when you've got Rex Specs, Gavin Griffiths knocking down 4 threes in the first half? Does that all of a sudden become an emotional connection?
Something will fill that void for the crowd. I don't know what it is. It'll never quite be the same, but
is it getting some blocks from Braxton Mia at the rim? Is it Berke Buchtengel handling the ball at 6'10"? There's going to be something. It's going to be different no matter what it is. Even if it's ultimately better for the team is better, they have more success. It's going to be different because you cannot fully replicate what Casey Tominaga was both on and off the basketball court.
Right. I do believe, though, just out of experience, and I fully feel that way now, the concern that the juice isn't going to be there without him, that I will be fully engrossed in this team at some point this year and have forgotten, right? Not forgotten forever, but not been like, this feels empty but I don't know what that'll be. But I do think you make a good point. Just in terms of team leadership, juice within the team, like, Bryce is a quiet dude, right? Juwan is, I wouldn't say Juwan's a quiet dude necessarily. He's definitely got some fire as well, but we don't know. I don't know enough about the personalities and when they're coming from all these disparate places again, which is not uncommon in college basketball, not even uncommon for Nebraska, but how will they gel together? We see that a ton in college sports where, a lot of times a bunch of transfers coming in don't gel right away at this point from completely different places, either on or off the court or both. So I think that's number one. Is the next biggest thing that you're missing then is if you take the intangibles off the board that we've addressed there, and we'll see what happens with those. Oh, and by the way, I think the showman might be a Season, right? He's got some of that in him is my guess. He's going to try and fill in some of that Casey stuff, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, and here, okay. I think we need to, like, because we've talked about it enough, but I don't think we've gotten to the central tenet of it, is that there's not, like, that was a unique individual, Keisei Tominaga. Not every team in the country has that. Not even every successful team has that guy, because it's different the way they emotionally lead. It's when you have, and I know this is the Nebraska one, but she would go out, Caitlin Clark, and just get other fan bases torqued off at her.
Right.
Keisei Tominaga did that.
Yep.
And the reason we loved him and not Caitlin Clark is because he was ours. He was the guy that was going to end up in the student section, end up behind like, he's in the crowd, and you're going, that's probably a technical foul, but he's our guy and he deserves to do that.
And he would back it up. Yes.
Yeah. He backed it up. And like all of the things that he did because he rode that line in such a way, that's not a thing that every team has. So there are parts of it that you can be like, who's kind of the emotional leader, but you're not getting a one-to-one Keisei Tominaga replacement.
No, it's not going to happen.
Even if you go, we will recreate him in the aggregate. Like, you're not doing that with a guy like Keisei Tominaga. But if you're going off of the away from the intangible part, if you get to the pure basketball, are you replacing the five guys that left with, you needed the rebounding, the size, the shooting, the ball handling? I think you replaced that. I think you upgraded overall.
Real quick, let's get that. I want a couple of comments in the chat. I don't want to forget our I-80 Club members who are chatting too. When I said that a season might replace him, Alex said Kirkland Casey. And then Dave explained, I think, exactly what I was trying to say earlier. He said Casey had that quality certain athletes, Curry, Barry Sanders, Otani, etc., have that. I can't look away because I have no idea what he'll do next vibe.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have that guy to have a successful team, right? I mean,
it's just fun.
You go back to the 14 team, there was no Keisei Tominaga necessarily on that team. It just made last year so special. It's almost got to do with my own enjoyment and excitement about the season, even more than success. We'll get to more of the success, but like, it's got to do with the vibes, right?
Yeah.
And the fun and the attention, right? The national attention that came along with it at the end of the year as well. And maybe none of that really matters in the end, but it has affected how I've looked at this season for sure. Now, what do you lose from him?
I will say from him, the one thing where it's I don't know what he'll do next. Some of that vibe, some of that feeling was, if he gets on, you can be in any game.
Right.
And I know that it wasn't necessarily him when you had the court storming and you had the wins over top 5 Purdue and Wisconsin. Like, when you got those wins, it wasn't necessarily a 38-point, 12-3 performance from Keisei Tominaga. But like, him being in the building meant you were not out of any game at the start.
Right. Yes. Mavscribator said this is Turan Petaway erasure, what I said earlier. That was a different deal. I would contend that was a different. It's nothing. There's no one you can compare Keisei to. It was just so unique for this program, and that's why it feels so different without him. Now, what do you miss from him? Obviously, what do you lose from him being not on the floor, though, Kaleb? It was what you were just talking about, right? That chance to have, on some nights, just an absolute scoring explosion. The other thing about it, though, is he could score at the rim, right? He got better later in his career, scoring more creatively. He got his distribution, I think, got really good. You're not going to lose a lot defensively from him, I guess, is the other side of it. So
you didn't get shorter,
no. So how well do you replace the other stuff? Replacing the shooting was kind of done in aggregate, kind of, because I think you've got a few guys. I mean, Esiason is the most one-to-one, comparative player in terms of being the prototypical shooter, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, you probably get more defensively from Esiason than you would have gotten.
You get a lot more defensively, and he's 2 inches taller.
He's 2 inches taller. He's not as good of a shooter, though, right? We're talking 30 to 35 with him in his career. Casey, we're talking 35 to 40.
Right.
Just percentage wise. And volume is much, much higher with Casey. In terms of, and then I'm just not sure that he's got the ability. We'll see. I just don't know if Esiason is going to have the ability to score in other ways like Casey did as well. So that won't be a one-to-one replacement. But what I was also trying to say is you've got some other guys who can shoot that, like, you have a net. When you think about those guys I said that were gone, that group of 5 that I said that were gone, Wilcher had his moments shooting, right? And also didn't. It was
like Wilcher was good for, like, he'd hit 2 in a row and you go, this is massive.
Yeah.
Then you'd be like, well, where's the rest of it?
Right. Jamarcus Lawrence definitely had his moments shooting too, but especially most of them were 2 years ago.
Right.
But definitely, obviously, in terms of, we're talking about outside shooting, Alec and Rank had a little bit of that too. Do you feel like as a whole, you've equaled that outside shot threat with what you've added in Griffiths and Esiason? Worcester isn't a big 3-point shooter for the most part. He's not going to be making you a lot of threes. Who else? I mean, Janowski, if he was playing, he's a 3-point shooter. I don't know how much he'll play. Ulis is still more of a point guard at that point. I mean, you're mainly kind of talking about Griffiths and Esiason. I don't think Buchtengel is going to be a huge 3-point guy either, right? So
no, like he'll shoot it, but that's not going to be something he necessarily wants to do.
Yeah.
Andrew Morgan and I like Braxton Mia's got a decent touch. So like these are guys that can shoot it. And probably when you're looking at those size and them replacing, say, like Josiah Alec and like I don't think any of those 3, Berke, Andrew Morgan, or Braxton Mia, shoots it as well as Rink Mast. So those 3 to replace Rink and Josiah, I don't know that they're 100% of replacing the shooting touch, but I think they're good for just as many rebounds and points, like when they get inside. So you've got that aspect to it.
And I'm thinking mostly about like just outside shooting right now.
On the outside shooting, I do think the outside shooting gets better because you have a true point guard. I think there's some of that.
And so that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you have an overall improvement, and maybe that's even with Bryce Williams. Maybe there's an overall improvement because he doesn't necessarily have to create his own shot. I think about the number of times that, yes, Casey on a jab step or a step back would hit those ridiculous shots.
Yes.
But I also think about the number of times that he shot so well with a catch and shoot. Right. And just not having a true point guard, and that's why he got really good shooting off of a pass from Derek Walker 2 years ago, from Rink Mast last year. Like, he was able to get into some of those good rhythms. But I think for this offense as a whole, shooting from 3 better, having some true inside size that is a threat, and having a true point guard who can distribute that ball increases their chances to make the shot.
Yeah. And there you go to the biggest difference. And it's a good way that you weaved it in with the impact of having a point guard. Because you're right, there were times in Casey Tominaga's career last year, the year before, where I was like, can they not set up a play for him?
Yes.
To get an open 3?
Yes.
I remember thinking that. I'm like, how do you not? I watch other teams and they're dishing around and they find their guy wide ass open for a 3. And for a lot of times it felt like Casey never had that play for him. It was just never, and people hedge screens and held him like hell. Like, I'm aware of that.
Well,
but
yeah, because they could. Because if you were to just hold him and say we're going to live with that, there wasn't really any other threat that happened when you took those chances.
Right. So the biggest, the biggest thing and the most interesting thing will be for years. I mean, for years, people have said, and I don't think they're wrong, that the offense has suffered because they don't have a true point guard, a true distributing point guard, right? A distribute first, pass first, look to get a high assist to turnover ratio point guard. Okay. They've got that in Raleigh Worcester right now. Like, we're putting to the test this theory that's been a problem last year and the year before and the year before, and however many years going back to probably Glenn Watson to, if that true point guard was there.
Under Hoiberg, like, you've had the opportunities to have that. If you would have had Alonzo Verge for a whole year, the way he played the Colorado scrimmage on Halloween night in 2020.
Oh my gosh.
Like, if you're 2021, if you would have had that,
forgot about the famous Colorado scrimmage. I didn't think Nebraska was going to lose after that game 4 years ago yesterday
because of the way he orchestrated that offense. And then he got into the season and went, I think I need to score. And you're like, whoa. That's not at all what looked really good against what turned out to be a good Colorado team. I think they made the tournament.
Right.
So, like, you had that opportunity there, and you have Delano Banton sit out, and then you have Delano Banton come in, and you're going, well, like, he's a really big point guard, but he wasn't like a break you down point guard. Mm-hmm. Like, he orchestrated stuff and he scored fine, but then he also kind of just went into a funk late in the year. And then I think if I remember right, he had to start coming off the bench. So, like, and obviously he's playing in the NBA now. So, like, you've had guys that could have been this role. I think Raleigh has the ability. Yes, he's 6'5", so, like, he's a decent sized point guard. Yeah, but he has the ability to break someone down and then get into a gap and distribute that ball out to the shooters. So it's a little bit of, I don't think he has the handles of what a true point guard Alonzo Verge would have been, but I think his
turnover rates, I mean, good, solid though. It has been historically
and
really
that's
solid.
the part. He takes care of the ball. He's going to make the right decision, and he's out there to set up his teammates. Not that he can't score. He'll score if he has to. He's not like a true three-point shooter, but I think this is a true point guard in the way you have not had it under Fred Hoiberg. Didn't really have a lot under Tim Miles. Like, it's just not a guy that Nebraska has typically had.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure. I mean, you had Cam Mack in there for a while. He kind of, he had his moments as a distributor and he had his not moments as a distributor.
His was he would turn the ball over. Like, that was the issue.
Yeah. I mean, I still go back to Glenn. It just feels like this has been for a decade a frustration with Nebraska basketball that should, in theory, not be an issue this year, or at least to the degree that it was. What about the bigs now, Kaleb? So taking out Josiah and obviously Rank Mast out for the year, you got kind of three guys that are sort of filling those two spots in. So, I mean, that's a rough way to say it, but it's kind of true. In Butangel, who's bigger than I thought. That dude's bigger than I thought when I saw him in that game. He's thicker than I thought.
Dude.
I don't know if it was the pictures or if he's gotten bigger or what. He did not look like I expected him to.
Well, and here's if anyone hasn't seen him yet, and they have watched, say, like the NBA, and you're going European with it, I think Nikola Jokic, like, it goes, that's a tall dude, and he's thicker than he should be for handling the ball like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a stereotype. Maybe it was the European basketball player stereotype. Maybe it was a bad angle on some of the pictures at UCLA. I saw him there. And I think it's the new haircut that plays into it too.
Yeah.
But like, he doesn't look like he's more Jokic than Dirk Nowitzki, I guess. That's what I would say in terms of his body. And I wonder what that'll mean about his game. I'm fascinated. I mean, they had him bringing down the ball on Monday.
Yeah.
Which I know they did with Derek Walker a bit, but
yeah. Now, it didn't work the one time they did it, and I'm curious if they'll go back to it. but they had him handling the ball, and Braxton Mia came out to set a screen. And I want to know if they can get into some decent mismatches with a two-man game of guys 6'10 plus. Mm-hmm. Or does Andrew Morgan come out a little bit on that? Or they set a screen and then they go set a screen for a guard, and now you've got giant mismatches somewhere. I think Hoiberg is creative enough that they'll utilize the ball handling that Berke brings. I don't know if any of these three guys are going to be do necessarily kind of like the dirty work of Josiah Alec, where he was flying everywhere at all times, because that's just the type of forward big that he was.
Blue collar hustle player.
Yeah, like that guy. I'm sure they'll have no problem mixing it up inside. They're going to want to try to block some shots. They're going to want to be big. They'll get physical. But there's a difference in being that size, and Josiah wasn't quite that size. With the hair for sure, but he was going to dive 3 rows into the crowd if he had to.
Right.
And like he was going to land at weird angles.
Crazy high motor. Motor. Yeah.
That's
you probably can't duplicate that part of his game.
Yeah. You're not necessarily going to get that, but
you trade that for size.
Yeah. You trade that for size. I think you'll rebound the ball better as a whole. Not just those guys, but like I said, you've got a 6'5" point guard. Bryce is 6'7". Jawan is 6'4", or 6'6". So like you're really big across the board. And for those three guys in particular, 6'10", 6'10", 7'1" with Braxton Mia, I think you rebound the ball better. I think you can defend at the rim a little bit better, and overall that creates more of a point per game differential for you.
Kaleb, defending the rim a little bit better. There was no defense at the rim at the end of last year.
No, there wasn't.
I mean, Terrence Shannon is still laying it up on that team in the Big Ten tournament, right? And it was about in part because of Rank's health. Rank deteriorated clearly during the course of the year. Alec wasn't quite big or athletic enough to do that. When I saw Mia out there again, when I saw him out there on Monday or Sunday, when that game was, like, again, I knew of his size. I had seen some highlights, but just to see him out there, I was like, dang, it has been a long time since I've seen someone that size, that sheer size in terms of height for Nebraska. Like, it has been, I mean, it took me back to the Rich King days for some of the old school people, just how tall he looked out there.
And they ran and got a play for him right off the tip, and Mia dunked it. And I know it's a preseason exhibition, and I know it's not the best competition in the world, and you're trying to get a lot of guys out there and just do different rotations. But it is really nice to see that size, because think about the number of times that you're like, oh, well, we've got multiple guys that can handle the ball. There are multiple guys that can shoot. You can kind of do all of this, but nobody is taller than 6'8". Like, now you can roll out some true size. I think it's still going to be interesting what the starting, like, you're going to have a decent starting lineup that is going to be Raleigh, Bryce, Juwan, Berke, and then probably Andrew Morgan when he gets back. You probably bring Braxton Mia off the bench. Or you could go the other way. So, like, that 5 spot is a little interchangeable.
Mia or Morgan, you think, with those other 4?
Now, what I think is interesting, if you get into a situation and you're like, let's go big, and you have Raleigh Worcester at 6'5" at point guard. Right. So 6'5". So, like, you're still pretty big, and he's handling the ball, and he's bigger than Aaron Eulis.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have Bryce at 6'7".
Right.
But you slide Berke up to the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then your 4-5 is Andrew Morgan and Braxton Mia.
Yeah, man.
And the offense will look different. It's not going to be a 3-point first offense, but there could be a situation where you go, let's slow it down and pound the rock inside with 2 bigs, run a high-low offense. And you've got Berke who can kind of clean some stuff up, 6'10" on the backside. Like, I think there's going to be some intriguing things you can do with lineups with these guys without it just being a U3 rotate at the 4 and 5 spots.
Now, you're exactly right. There's a lot more capability of having some different stylistic possibilities that this team just didn't have last year. But I think a good point too, Dave and Bigelow are making in the chat. Hello, Bigelow. We'll see you on Monday night. was Dave said correctly. He said between Derek Walker and Rank Mast, Nebraska had tons of success using their big as a passing option. He said from the top of the key, but at the bottom too, to be honest. And then Bigelow points out back-to-back years, Nebraska's center was their leading assist guy.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're moving away from that to some degree.
Well, yeah, and some of that was because, and not that like Bear K can do that. Like Bear K can be that replacement for the Derek Walker, the Rink Bass, the passing from a big guy. But you have a true point guard to run that through now. Like the reason that happened was, think about Nebraska football. The reason that your leading rusher had been the quarterback for several years was because you had a quarterback who was the best rusher on the team. And that was the best way to get rushing yards.
Wait, are you telling me that Derek Walker given goes to Casey where Heinrich Harburg running the quarterback draw?
I was going to call him more Adrian Martinez, but yeah, we can give him some Harburg.
That's hilarious.
Late season lower body injuries.
I don't know if these changes are, here's the thing. I don't know if these changes are good or bad stylistically, but they're going to be there, right? I mean, they're going to be there. I think it's going to be there. I think you're net down on the shooting, but I think you're net up on defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're net down on shooting, you're net up on defense, right? Net up on backcourt assists, net down on front court assists. I mean, there's a lot of yin and yang within the changes throughout this entire thing, and I don't know exactly, obviously, how all of that's going to work out, which is why it's going to be so fun to watch him play. And Kaleb, it's going to be this thing. Now, Creighton is early this year. That's going to be another weird thing about this schedule.
November game.
As we there are not normally you've played, I don't know how many games before you get to Creighton, right? You played 6-7 games, right? You've been through a Thanksgiving tournament and stuff often, but that is game 1, 2, 3. 5. Well, yeah, St. Mary's is game 4 and Creighton is game 5. Like you were jumping into it this year in a way that you haven't for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you're right there. So you got to figure out that rotation.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I know you want to. I think Nebraska's gonna be 3-0 going into the St. Mary's game. But
right.
That's not to say on Monday there couldn't be a scare early on because of that regime change and because they're going to shoot so many threes. And I will say that was the issue I had for Nebraska in the first half against Grand Valley State in that exhibition was defending the three at all and defending anything in transition. And I know you started to get a lot more rotations and you're getting a lot of guys in there, but that is my concern going into this season right now. Yes, you should be plus size, plus defense, but can you defend the three, especially if they're doing it at a high volume like UT-Rio Grande Valley should be doing on Monday?
Yeah. I was just wondering just in terms of like the breakdown of where these non-conference teams we don't know a lot. Texas Rio Grande Valley, I'm using Evan Miyakawa at the moment. You can use, again, Ken Palmer, whatever. Texas Rio Grande Valley is 315 overall. So that's 315 out of 364. Next game will be against Bethune-Cookman. They are 355 out of 364. Yikes. And then Fairleigh Dickinson is 327. So
boosting the resume right away.
Holy moly. Yeah. And then you'll get a little bit later, you'll get South Dakota. They should be a little bit higher, I would think, in those rankings. South Dakota is at 245. So that's, significantly up from where they are. North Florida is going to be at 262. So these first three, Kaleb, are really the Southern might be down there. But other than that, these first three are really going to be the ones to get your crap together and figure this stuff out for. Southern is 303. Yeah, these three are the three worst. These are the three worst non-conference teams in a fairly weak non-conference schedule that you've got.
Yeah. I think it'll be good for them. They'll get their feet wet. They'll get stuff figured out before they head up to Sioux Falls, and we send Jacob Bigelow on the road for After Nebrasketball to do some stuff up there. But it's at least we can say this. At least we can say this. I know we started out with our NCAA tournament confidence meter, and me at a 9, you at a 3.5. At least it's
That
here.
sounds so hilarious. I feel like the whole year they're going to go like this at some point.
They're going to regress to the mean.
In like February, we're both going to be at 5 at some point. But
here's what I will say. There was all of the emotion, like once you got to late in the year 2 years ago and you had the K-Say February ballisticness, and then you had all of last year and you had the Final Four weekend and the 3-point contest, and we got to like bleed out having K-Say as our guy, and you had the hometown kid with Josiah Alec and all of those things, and you got to the NCAA tournament. This has felt like a long time since then. Like it's been a long time. I'm happy that it's here, and to see what does Fred Hoiberg look like now that K-Say kind of saved his job with that February.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but now you bring in 7 guys, and it feels different bringing in 7 all of these new guys compared to the first couple of years when you had a roster turnover.
Yeah.
It feels like there's something that can be successful going forward, that you had guys like Bryce and Jawan decide to come back.
Yeah, that's something. That was one of my questions for Kent is like, what were you surprised those guys came back? And I wanted to talk about that more, and maybe we can get into it later. But yeah, the fact that they and I think it had a lot to do with Fred, Caleb. Like,
yeah.
And you know, first few years aside with COVID and an assistant coach that wasn't clicking with all of that, I know it rarely happens that you kind of start off bad for several years, but then turn it around. But there's one theory about this season going well that you could adopt, which is just like Fred Hoiberg's cooking right now, basically. Yes. And and this is who he is as a coach.
Is this where it is that Fred Hoiberg, he really figured it out 2 years ago, but got derailed by injuries, kind of took the next step last year where you were able to stay healthy, and now he's got what is that secret sauce for him to have success in Lincoln going forward? Mm-hmm. Does that click for sure this year? I think it does.
Like, I think there's that's one of the better arguments maybe that is out there, right? Is that he is legitimately a really good coach, and is able, with his ability to sort of get specifically what he wants in the transfer portal and orchestrate like it was, like he had the opportunity to this offseason, that he may be able to really do something special with that. Well, we won't have to wait much longer to find out, although I don't know that we're going to know a lot, as we pointed out after these first 3 games, Caleb, but we will get started, as we were saying. Season starts on Monday night, 7:00 against Texas Rio Grande Valley. It's a 7:00 tip-off Central Time at Pinnacle Bank Arena, and don't forget that'll be after daylight saving time, going back. And so that means Bigelow, Caleb, and I will be on about probably, I don't know, these games are like 2 hours 15 minutes usually, so maybe 9:30, 9:45,
9:30-ish, yeah,
9:30, 9:45, and we'll go a half hour. So again, reiterate, if you didn't do it at the beginning, subscribe and like to the YouTube pages, I-80 Club, HuskerMax. Just you can get the notifications when we go live for the post-game show, because it'll vary and it's going to kind of be playing it by ear depending on some things on the game as well. So we will have that for you, and I'm excited to get Bigelow and the crew and get going live from Pinnacle Bank Arena. And Caleb, Caleb's got the John Cook cowboy hat on now, with the Nebraska volleyball hat on, or volleyball shirt on too.
Yeah, the little Hawaiian volleyball. I have to throw it on, otherwise I won't be able to fit my headphones over this giant cowboy hat. Go Nebraska volleyball. Kick some Wisconsin butt tonight.
Listen, it's not the Nebraska Volleyball Brunch Show.
Don't care. It's brunch. I've had a couple mimosas, 3 Bloody Marys. Let's go Nebraska volleyball.
All right. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. Keep coming back. Like I said, like, subscribe on the YouTube pages. If you want to join in the live studio audience for these shows, make sure and join the I-80 Club, patreon.com/I-80 Club. And next for us on the I-80 Club tomorrow morning, for members only, we have our Saturday morning coffee show. It's our Saturday pregame show. It's our members' favorite show, and we get ready for Nebraska and UCLA. And then late on Saturday night, we are going to do our I-80 Club After Dark, and that's going to be 9 o'clock-ish, I believe.
Bowl eligibility?
Saturday night. Could be a bowl eligibility party. That's going to be free to the public. So make sure you get the notification set for that, or set yourself an alarm to join us on YouTube. Kaleb, what should people know about HuskerMax?
Just continue to check HuskerMax.com for everything you need. Huskers, including a lot of links to the shows that the I-80 Club does. And Nebraska on SI is where you can get a lot of our written content as well.
Awesome. Hey, thank you to everybody who was joining us today. We had pretty good amount of live viewers. Those of you in the club and the live chat, appreciate you guys. We're going to keep working you in during the show. So we had a lot to say here on this first show with an hour to go, but we'll have actual games to react to next Friday when we do it again. All right. With that, for Kaleb Henry, I'm Jack Mitchell. That is it. We'll see you next time on the Nebrasketball Brunch Show. Bye-bye.